Good morning. Good morning. It's NICOA. We are on the banks of Whiskey Creek with my beautiful friend Brigitte. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. So, guys, we have these lovely friends, family friends from our vacations over the years. Bald Head Island is our favorite happy place. And 16 plus years ago, we met on the tram. Was that it? All our little babies on our hips?
Yeah,
and
somewhere along the ferry.
on the ferry,
yeah.
in the ferry, back on the tram, visiting every other year or so. We would run into each other only on vacation. And this year, Brigitte and her beautiful family were able to stop here at the Sound House and spend the night with us before heading out to the island tomorrow. We are by a nice little fire here, and it's not even cold. So they're so glad to be here. She's from New York, Irvington, New York, right?
That's right, near Tarrytown.
Now, I went to visit her, and it's the quaintest little town. And I said, well, I went to visit you, so you guys have to come visit me. So here she is, and we're going to do a quick Life by Design interview that you've come to know and love. So, Brigitte, you know my story, right? The American dream, made it to the top, and then was like, what the heck am I doing? And I got all these babies and the 2.4 kids in the house with the white picket fence. I made massive life changes. Usually people are either doing that on their own devices, or they're forced to. Tell us your story.
So I guess I had the TV version of the American dream. I had a really great anchor job in cable news. I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved my coworkers. It was fantastic. They did my hair and makeup every day.
Just like the morning show, right? Just like the morning show,
yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah,
Sort of,
and not that early. But but my kids were little. They were 6 and 3 and a baby.
Yeah.
And my mom had been kind of the primary caretaker,
Yeah.
and she was really, really slowing down. My husband was working a lot of hours, and he was making more than enough to provide for us.
Sure.
And I started thinking, I'm really doing the TV thing for myself in a sense. It's not like, oh, I need this to make a living. And we would leave together for Manhattan at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I would hear my mother coming down the steps, kind of breathing heavily. And I knew it was just getting to be too much. And I would get in the car in the morning and I would just break down and cry. I would leave them in front of the TV, the three of them. They'd be watching Winnie the Pooh or something like heartbreaking. And I just thought, why did I have these kids?
Right.
if I don't want to spend all this time with them. So it was kind of crazy. And maybe this would have been an episode in the morning show. I went to my TV executive boss and said, I would like a reduced schedule.
Yeah. Ask for what you want.
He looked at me like I had two heads, and he said, I forget the exact quote, but no one's ever asked me for less airtime.
Good
and I was like, well, I'm asking.
Good for you.
So I had a reduced schedule, and then a couple of years later, I left entirely and just spent my days with the kids and taking care of my mom.
Sure.
And taking charge at home. It's what I had to do.
And aligning your life choices to what mattered most to you.
Right.
I mean, that is the point, guys. If you're not actually focusing on what you intend from a values perspective and what really does matter most to you. I mean, we'll ask this question and people are like, oh, well, family matters most. And then they don't spend time with their family.
Right.
So what really matters most to you, and is your behavior aligned to that? And here's the thing. You may think, oh, I could never go ask for a reduced schedule, or I'm not in a situation where I could make an accommodation like that. But if you ask, if you don't ask, you'll never get it. So good for you for asking.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I missed it. I missed the job. I missed being in a newsroom. I really did. But what happened was, for a number of years, I stayed at home with the kids primarily.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do things that I could do when they were in school.
Right.
Or at that time, my youngest was still in preschool. So I went back to school and I got a writing degree. And I thought, I'm going to use that to be a teacher. And I taught a couple of college classes as an adjunct. I wound up writing a novel.
Yes. Tell us.
Okay. Shameless plug. It's called Anchored, but it really,
Anchored.
I mean,
Brigitte Quinn.
It wasn't.
Go buy it.
Wasn't the bestseller that I thought would.
But you put it out there.
But I kept busy during the hours that the kids were at school. I could keep I think a lot of women complain. A lot of people complain that when they they leave work to raise a family. They said, well, I need some intellectual stimulation.
True.
So that's how I tried to get that.
You did. Yeah.
And then cut to a number of years later, they were a little bit older, and my husband wound up leaving his job.
Right.
And I said, I would not mind going back in. So I got a job I actually started my career in radio.
Okay,
I made a call to an old friend, an old buddy who was now running one of the stations in New York, and said, hey, I would be really happy to do some freelance anchoring for you if you think I could. And
before you knew it.
Yeah. And I got hired within a month and kind of reworked my way back up the radio ladder.
Did, because you were still having to get up super early. I remember one of the biggest challenges for Brigitte, and because we would only see her on her holidays, on her vacations, is that she was really trying to take as much advantage of her time off to get her sleep again and really kind of recover, because
life of the party.
Really, your career has required super early wake up times, and you recently made an adjustment with the radio.
I made another change.
You made another request and got what you wanted.
Yeah. So when I worked my way back up the ladder in radio, I got hired as the morning drive time anchor, which was probably the best job to have,
because
pretty cool.
In New York City.
It's when most people still listen,
yes.
Right? Because they're in their cars. But I did that. I did the early call for about, and even earlier than Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon's alarm. Okay.
Oh my gosh!
When I see that scene, I'm like,
they're 3:30 a.m. 3:30. You're getting up at 2.
Yeah, they're sleeping in.
Yeah.
But after 6 and a half years, I said, geez, I don't really want to do this anymore. So I pitched an idea. Well, I mean, it was different reasons.
Sure.
I pitched an idea for a show during the midday hours because I really wanted to do breaking news again.
Yeah.
Pitched a concept to my boss, and we worked on it. And it took a while,
So what's your advice for everybody? If you were going to give them life by design advice based on your journey, what would it be?
My advice, I guess, number one is, as cliche as it sounds, you'll never have that time back with your kids when they're little. And when they start to leave the nest, you're going to start to really miss those days. So I would say find something. Don't accommodate your children to fit your work schedule. I would say do it the other way around if you can.
If you can.
The time is precious. And yeah, to your point, don't be afraid to ask. I mean, people, that they're not mind readers. Your boss isn't going to know. Gee, I bet you she would like to do a midday show instead. They thought, oh, she's never going to want to leave the mornings because that's a prestige shift.
That's right. They made an assumption.
So they don't know what you want. You have to verbalize.
And if you're a leader of others, it's really critical not to assume what individuals' career path requests are, or what their interests are. So always ask, what do you really want? What matters most to you? So begin that dialogue like we've had to over the years by looking in the mirror. If you're dreading a commute or you're dreading pushing that Zoom call, join meeting now, then it's time to reevaluate. Thank you for spending time with me on my sweet little. We're sitting here looking at lives on. We've got the phone jacked up here on a piece of coral. I mean, it's like really. I wish you could have a photo of the behind the scenes.
It is idyllic here.
All right, guys, we love you. Coffee with NICOA. Send this to anybody you think needs some life by design advice. Oh, now. Stephanie's filming us. Okay, turn this off. How do I turn it off? There we go. Love you. And bye, guys. Oh, gosh.